Mode.
Hello and welcome to the first session of the Buy Here, Pay Here Report webinar series. I'm Nick Zulovich, editor of Buy Here, Pay Here Reports. Thank you so much for joining us. Today's webinar is presented by FEX DMS. More details and information about this industry-recommended dealer solution is available at financeexpress.com. Pastime. More details about how this GPS technology can help you keep track of your cars is available at pastimeusa.com. And also NCM Associates. 20 groups, manager training, and more is available at ncm20.com. So again, thank you so much for joining us today for the debut edition of the Buy Here, Pay Here Report webinar training series. We thank you so much for registering and joining us today. Before we get started with each of our three panelists that you will see on the screen there, I want to make sure that you've dialed in using the phone number provided in your communication email, or you're able to listen via your PC speakers. We are recording today's webinar, and we'll make that recording and presentation from each of our presenters available to you in the coming days. You'll be in listen-only mode for this webinar, and we will reserve some time after each of our presentations for a short question and answer session. You can submit your questions at any time through the questions box on the GoToWebinar control panel. And if we aren't able to get to your questions, don't worry, they'll be passed along to each of our presenters so they can get back to you directly via email. And finally, if you have any problems during the webinar, just click on the hand icon, and a member of our webinar team will get to that question as quickly as possible. So again, thank you for joining us. Let's turn things over to our first presenter. She's Tara Bowman. She's the Director of Sales and Training at FEX DMS. Tara, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. One thing we wanted to obviously talk about today is just some tips in the buy here, pay here market or for the industry. And so kind of the areas I wanted to focus on was texting and queues. But first and foremost, we wanted to just kind of talk about, in general, we would always recommend obviously having a highly integrated dealer management software. In order to have texting and queues, you obviously have to have a DMS to be able to work out of. And so that would be one of the things that we would suggest to start out with, is making sure that your DMS has things that make you more efficient and effective in doing your daily business items. And so one of the things that we would suggest is obviously being web-based, being able to access your information from home, being able to see your data when you're on vacation, being able to have security rights for your people so that not everyone has the exact same accesses. Those would be things that we would suggest that are important when you're looking for a DMS or what you currently have available in your current DMS. As well as being able to do things like inventory uploads, being able to put your inventory in one place and not have to go enter them into cars.com and AutoTrader and 5 different other places to manage your inventory. Being able to import inventory in from auctions that you purchase from, or window stickers and buyer's guides that you can print out of your system very easily and put in your windows. Having a mobile application that you can use at the auction or on your lot, so that you can very easily enter cars into inventory through a mobile application, or even being able to just evaluate vehicles at the auction that you're interested in purchasing. Having valuation guides in your system so that you can very easily evaluate the car, whether on the mobile app or from your actual system, and being able to see what the vehicle's worth, as well as evaluate trade-ins and such. Being able to have vehicle history reports easily accessible so you know exactly what the history of that vehicle is. Also being able to accommodate every customer that walks on your lot. Obviously, we're talking about focusing on buy here, pay here today, but obviously being able to help every customer that walks through your door, whether they are buy here, pay here, or looking for retail finance, having access to banks that would help you accommodate those customers' needs, as well as credit reporting, whether to the bureau or polling bureaus, having those easily accessible in your system so that you can pull the customer's credit or report the customer's credit to the bureau. And then also having compliance options within your DMS, being able to have someone that's got your back to help you with risk-based pricing and red flag rules, adverse actions, privacy notices, all of those things. You want to make sure that you're not putting yourself into a situation that you get audited for things and getting fined for things that you may not even know that you were required to do. And so in addition to that, also having integrated forms in your DMS, making sure you're using contracts that the customers are signing that have been vetted in court, and you know that they're not going to be out of compliance or cause you to get fined for having a contract that hasn't been held up in court. As well as GPS devices that you can easily track in your system to find where the vehicle's at or generate codes to send out to your devices. Being able to take ACH and credit card payments in your system so that your customers can make payments online or payments, as well as maybe if you have a service bay and you want to be able to manage your service, your repair order invoices, those sort of things. Any of those features, and obviously just a small list, but just having those things integrated into a DMS is going to make your life easier day in and day out, so that instead of logging into 5 or 6 different websites throughout the day, you can do it all in one place. And then you can spend more time doing what you're best at, which is selling cars, and less time which managing your software. So I just wanted to touch on that first and foremost, obviously, since we are DMS. That would be one thing that we would suggest. But in addition to that, we would also, what we have found across our dealer base is that two of the things that seem to be the most common is texting and having a way to manage your collections easily and effectively. We found, from our dealers that a lot of times customers will not answer the phone, but they will, they will text back. And so if you were looking into some type of texting feature, some of the things that we would suggest would be to have an option that you can actually have your employees notified when your customers are responding, so that you can receive text notifications. And so have the ability to be able to send your employees text messages. And so you can go in and you can authorize those text messages by sending them a text. And when you do that, they would receive a text message that allows them to agree to the text, or that you can put in a code that would allow them to go ahead and authorize the text that way. And then once they've done that, then they should receive something similar in return that shows that they've been verified to receive those text messages. The second thing would be that you would obviously want to have a text authorization from your customers. We would suggest that you have something on file. You can obviously get the customer's verbal permission to send them a text message, but we always would suggest that you have something on paper, so that you can always go back and refer to that, so that you can say, I have this document showing that you authorized us to send you text messages. So the same thing, you can send a texting authorization to the customer, and they will receive those same text messages to verify the text that you're going to start sending. And they can opt out of those at any time. But you do also want to make sure that you have documents in place for different types of text messaging. You have your loan servicing text, and you also have your marketing text. And those are different types of text messages, and you want to make sure you have authorizations in place for both. And so you always want to make sure that you have gotten the customer's permission to send them those different types of text. Once you have the permission, then obviously you want to be able to send the customer a text, and having it integrated into your DMS so that you can have all the notes in there makes it obviously easy to be able to see the history of what you sent to the customer as well as what they've responded back with. And so when you send text messages, we would suggest that you make sure that whatever company that you're using for those text messages, they have templates that are going to keep you in compliance, making sure that you're not doing anything or sending anything to the customer that's going to cause you to get in trouble. And so we do have the ability for free-form text, but we would always suggest to our dealers that they use templated versions. So there's a lot of compliance driven around what exactly you can and cannot say in a text message. And so making sure that the company that you're working with has backed you up and said these are ones that we know are in compliance is always the best way to go. Once you send the text message to the customer and you go ahead and send that over to them, then they would receive a text message similar to this that shows that their insurance is expired and that they should respond back to you in order to get that updated. And if you are set up to receive notifications, then you would be able to receive something similar to this to show that the customer did respond as well as what they responded back with. And having all of that information stored in your notes of your account so that you can always see what you sent to the customer as well as what they responded back with, is extremely important so that you can see that you sent this information to the customer and then they responded back. So it's not just housed on your, your actual device or the customer's. You have it physically in your system and you've got proof of it. And so we would always suggest that you have that, something integrated in that you can keep in your DMS. The second thing would be collection queues. And obviously one of the pieces of collections is obviously texting, but being able to easily work through your accounts in whatever form or fashion that you would like to. You should be able to take your data and manipulate it however you would like to be able to do your collections the way that makes sense to you. And so we really look at collection queues or just queues in general as interactive reporting. It's a way for you to, instead of taking a past due report that you would have done in the past and sit down with a highlighter and a pen and write all your notes and then have to take that information back and put it into your system later, you now have the report here in front of you. And it makes it very easy to work your accounts without having all of the double entry. Especially with reports, when you sit down with a report, if the customer now calls over the phone, makes a payment online, or walks in the dealership, as soon as they do that, your data is stale. And so you don't have the most up-to-date information anymore on that customer, and you could make a phone call to them and ask them for their payment or where their payment's at, and they could have literally just made it 5 minutes ago. So having your data here in real time that you can very easily access and go over with the customer or work your customers is always going to make you more efficient and effective and keep you from obviously having a lot of extra work that you shouldn't have to have. But having queues that you can not only configure the data based off of, maybe you want to have queues for insurance, past due insurance or repossessions that you want to work on, or past due customers, or you want to do it by a certain portfolio or location, days past due by last name. You should be able to do that with your collections and set them up however you see fit. And being able to also choose your layout. So you should be able to have a standard layout that's provided to you, but then also to be able to change that up so you can see the data the way that you want to work it, because maybe one collector likes seeing it this way and another collector likes seeing it that way. And so having that flexibility to see your data the way that you would like and what's most convenient for you. Being able to sort the information so that you're not required to look at it in a certain layout or sort pattern. Being able to sort it whatever works best for you makes no sense. Those are all things that you should be able to do. And also being able to work the accounts easily without having to go in and out of the account all the time. Having your action items here so that you can, excuse me, you can go in and actually add notes, make a phone call to the customer, send them an email, whatever it may be. Do those things very easily without having to actually go into the account, so you're not reshuffling your queue all the time and trying to find the place where you left off. And so all of those things are going to make it more easy and easy for you to work your customers and spend less time, shuffling around and doing all these things that you're taking extra time to do. We want your collectors to be able to spend their time just working their accounts and not spend time, doing a bunch of extra double entry. So So those two things would be the things that we would suggest. Texting and cues is what we found across our dealer base. It seems like that has been the most hot topics recently, and as well as being able to have all of that integrated into your dealer management software. So thank you for your time.
Great information and presentation, Tara. Thank you so much. Just a couple of follow-up questions from your presentation. On your opening slide, there was a lot of attributes to consider when evaluating what's best for your store and what DMS to use. What elements would you recommend as a place to start? What parts or attributes of a DMS have you all found that seem to be most important to dealers, that they ask most about, or where might be a good place to start when evaluating what was on that list?
I think the biggest thing is just analyzing their business model in general. What exactly are their hot buttons? Dealers come to us all the time for a multitude of reasons, whether it be lenders, whether it be for buy here, pay here, or just DMS. And we get a lot of dealers that are looking to have some flexibility within their DMS as far as web-based. There's a lot of desktop-based systems out there. There's a lot that are trying to go web-based, but there's not a lot of true web-based systems. And with everybody's having the iPhone and the iPad, and having all this technology available to them, they want to be able to get to their data very easily without having to log into a desktop version. So I would say that seems to be a big thing that we get asked about. But also, even within buy here, pay here, flexibility within having multiple locations, as well as having related finance companies. Those are things that it seems like we get a lot of questions about and how we handle those things. Service has obviously been a huge thing recently. And so it's really about analyzing your business model, and then when you're working with different DMS companies, finding out truly what the feature sets are. There's a lot of information out there that they'll say that they have certain things, but just really truly ask the questions. How it works and what it looks like, and is there a demo or a dummy demo that they can play with to try it out? Because there's a lot of things that are said that once you get into it and ask a few more questions, those features that may be advertised are maybe not exactly what they seem. And so you always want to make sure that you're getting exactly what you're looking for.
Excellent recommendations, Tara. And just to quickly follow up, is the FEX DMS system available to operators in Canada as well as the U.S.?
Currently, it's just the United States. We have had a couple dealers in Canada that have reached out to us, but because of taxes and fees and just different setups and forms for the different, it being a completely different country, that's not something that we're set up for. So it is currently just the U.S.
Very good, very good. That's Tara Bauman. She's the Director of Sales and Training at FEX DMS. Thank you so much for the great information, Tara.
Thanks, Nick.
So moving on with our webinar series, I'd like to bring on our next presenter. She's Corinne Kirkendall. She's the Vice President of Compliance and Public Relations at Pastime, one of the great GPS service providers who works with buy here, pay here dealers throughout the United States. And her presentation will focus on the compliance side of using GPS technology. Corinne, thank you so very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm sorry, I'm still a little new at this webinar, so bear with me. And if I forget to advance my screens, I apologize. I get excited and get going, and so stop me quickly if you need me to keep advancing. Thank you, Tara, Brett, and Nick. I'm excited to be doing this. This device training is non-device specific and not company specific. It's actually for anybody that's using any type of starter interrupter GPS device. So I'm going to run through it really quick. It's a condensed version of the full device training. So after completing this, it's our hope that you'll have a better understanding of the application for payment assurance in GPS devices and a greater awareness of the state and federal regulations that impact the way that dealers and finance companies use the devices. And the full training is available if anybody's interested. It's about 2 hours of intense, exciting compliance training. So the first section we will talk about is the overview of the devices and kind of describe the differences between payment assurance, GPS, and a dual functioning device. GPS and payment assurance devices are used as a tool for asset recovery, collection assistance, and a variety of other industries, including customer assistance, fleet, and auto theft recovery. Payment assurance devices are payment reminder devices. They're used as a collection tool and for asset recovery, but they're not equipped with GPS. Distinguishable components in them are the relay for start or interrupt and a backup emergency system. This backup system varies on your device manufacturer. So for example, Pastime has a remote that each consumer gets, and it's about the size of an iPod that we tell them to stick in their glove box. The GPS wireless devices is a consumer application. It's also for fleet and auto theft recovery. The GPS tracking is typically for installation verification, repossession, verifying the risk on the account status, keeping the risk current, or to verify the device is working properly. And the best practice really is to track with a purpose. GPS devices typically include a GPS module chipset, a cellular module, a GSM or CDMA antenna, and a GPS antenna, and a relay, a start and up, and then the same backup system that varies based on your device manufacturer. And your dual payment assurance and GPS devices is a wire combination of everything described above. So now we'll kind of talk about the federal laws, and I'm going to really fly through these fast because it's a lot of information. So federal law and regulations do not expressly regulate the use of devices. That said, there are federal laws and regulations that affect the way that dealers and finance companies must use the devices. So we're going to review some samples, beginning with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is the CFPB. I'm sure most people are very aware of. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau was created by the Dodd-Frank Act. Number 1, to enforce existing federal consumer financial protection law. 2, to create and enforce new consumer financial protection rules. 3, to monitor the consumer financial services industry. And 4, to supervise certain financial institutions in respect to consumer financial protection laws and rules. The purpose of the Bureau is really to ensure that all consumers have access to the markets for the consumer financial protection products and services, and at those markets for the consumer financial products the services are fair, transparent, and competitive. Fair, transparent, and competitive. The Bureau also has authority to write the rules under the new law created by Dodd-Frank. Thorough supervision, rule writing, and enforcement of the Bureau prohibits practices that are unfair or deceptive, a standard that the lawyers have shorthanded as UDAP, for unfair, deceptive practices. Dodd-Frank added an extra prong to the UDAP, also prohibiting abusive practices. This new law, commonly referred to as UDAP with an extra A, prohibits a person from engaging in unfair, deceptive, or abusive acts and practices with respect to consumer financial products and services. The law is similar to the Federal Trade Commission's UDAP provision, which we'll talk about a little later, but is specific to consumer financial products and services and applies to any person that are subject to the Bureau's jurisdiction. At the very least, a company that provides GPS tracking or payment assurance devices to a financial institution can be seen as a service provider to the persons engaging in the provisions of the financial products and services and is subject to that CFPB authority. So note that the CFPB also has debt collection rule-making authority, which will be exercised and may impact the use of GPS and payment assurance devices. So the Federal Truth in Lending, or TILA, and its implementing regulation, which is Regulation Z, requires that those who extend credit to consumers do so according to certain rules. For the purpose of the motor vehicle finance, TILA is really a disclosure law requiring that anyone entering into retail installment sales contract to make certain disclosures about the terms and cost of credit to the consumer. Originally, TILA was intended to allow consumers to shop for better credit options. As it was intended, TILA doesn't work so well. Often consumers don't read the disclosures, and if they do, they don't really understand them. The TILA and Regulation Z govern that fees and charges that are and are not considered finance charges. Finance charges are generally described as fees imposed by the creditor's incident to or as a condition of the extension of credit. This is a broad definition, and unless Regulation Z specifically excludes a fee from the calculation of a finance charge, any fee imposed by a creditor or on the buyer would be treated as a finance charge. For our purpose, under TILA and Regulation Z, if a dealer or finance company requires the installation of a GPS or payment assurance device as a condition of the extending credit and charges the consumer for the device, that charge is a finance charge. And the charge will be disclosed as part of the finance charge and included in the calculation of the annual percentage rate disclosed in the risk. Failure to do so will subject violators to penalties. Charges for the required installation of GPS would be considered finance charge for TILA purposes. Most commercially available retail installment sales contracts are not set up to disclose a finance charge, and therefore any dealer using those forms and charging for the device is violating the law. I'd also like to note that it is a violation to hide the charge of it in the sales price of the financed cars. This is called a hidden finance charge and can also be subject to dealer liability under the Truth in Lending Act. The Federal Equal Opportunity Act is another law impacting GPS and payment assurance technology. The Act and its implementing regulation is Regulation B, like boy, prohibiting creditors from discriminating in any aspect of the credit transaction on a basis of color, religion, national origin, sex, marital status, or age because that person receives some type of public assistance or because the person has asserted its rights under the consumer protection status. This prohibition under the law are best explained by example. So if a dealer or finance source installs a device on a vehicle purchased by Hispanics or single women but are not on other consumer vehicles, that action would be a violation of the Equal Opportunity Act and Regulation Z. And the violation would be subject to the dealer or finance company to penalties. A dealer and finance company must establish objective criteria used in every sale to make the determination whether to install a GPS or payment assurance device on a vehicle. For example, a dealer could install a device on every vehicle it finances, or a dealer could install a device on a vehicle that's on every vehicle that's financed over a certain amount. So on a side note, there's another theory called disparate impact theory under the Equal Opportunity Act. And even if you have objective criteria which is facially neutral with respect to the protected classes that are listed above for the installation, you should also audit that process to ensure that the actual process does not lead to some type of disparate impact on a protected class. So to recap, there's no federal law dealing with the vehicle finance expressly permitting or prohibiting the use of GPS or payment assurance technology. The federal laws are silent on that point. Even so, there are federal law impose duties on creditors using devices, and these duties might as well require changes to the way that dealer and finance companies operate. So state laws, in general, it is a state law that regulates the substantive terms and conditions of a vehicle sale and financing contracts. While the federal law regulates those terms and conditions, it must be disclosed. It is also state law generally that regulates the dealership's activities such as advertising, facility requirements, general contracting, and other dealers and finance company issues. In reviewing these slides, we will not recite all the laws that impact all the states regarding auto sales and financing. Instead, we'll just focus on a few that impact GPS and payment assurance devices in connection with the retail installment sales. There are a few states that directly regulate the use of GPS devices and payment assurance technology, but more often than not, you wind up in a state that does not directly regulate the devices, and the use of devices is indirectly regulated in all states. So navigating these laws seems like you're getting through a maze, but knowing the laws in your state and how it impacts the use of GPS and payment assurance technology can save you a lot of headache in the long run. So starter-enough devices or payment assurance devices and the UCC. We're going to start off our state review by talking about the payment assurance technology or starter enough devices and state law impact. The Uniform Commercial Code, or the UCC, regulates the way in which secured creditors exercise repossess vehicles without judicial process. This process is called self-help repossession. Additionally, many states enact statutes governing the notice requirements to a consumer credit transaction and may require the creditor send notice in connection with those repossessions, also known as the right to cure. Under the UCC 9-609, after default, a secured party may take possession of a vehicle judicially, which means by court order, or by self-help repossession, so as long as there is no breach of the peace. If we treat a disablement of the vehicle as a repossession, and to avoid the risk you probably should, the use of the device must not result in a risk of the breach of the peace. UCC Article 9 does not define or explain the conduct that constitutes a breach of the peace, so that's kind of leaving the matter to the courts. The using of the device to render a moving vehicle inoperable could result in the breach of the peace and create additional exposure to the creditor using the devices for resulting harm. However, if a device is properly installed and not altered, it is not capable of preventing a vehicle from, it's only capable of preventing the vehicle from starting. It will not stop a vehicle from operating once the vehicle has been started. The proper use of the device when compared to a traditional repossession substantially reduces the likelihood of a breach of the peace. A device simply prevents the consumer from restarting the vehicle. There is no confrontation whatsoever, and consequently, there is a scarce opportunity for the breach of the peace. In the terms of repossession, is generally not defined by state law in a manner that clearly includes and excludes the use of starter and devices. However, the use of devices can be compared to rendering equipment unusable under the UCC Article 9. UCC provides the creditor may render equipment that serves as collateral unusable. This right is created separately from the creditor's right to take possession for situations where the removal or storage of the collateral, such as heavy equipment, may be impractical or unduly expensive. While the definition of equipment generally does not include motor vehicles, this provision in the UCC most accurately describes the action taken by a creditor with the use of devices. Arguably, the use of the devices is not a repossession of a vehicle, simply rendering the vehicle inoperable. The creditor has not taken possession of the collateral, and the customer no longer has the ability to start the vehicle. Regardless of whether the use of the device, the use of the device is most likely repossession or resembles rendering the collateral unusable, the existence of the statutory right to render equipment unusable suggests that there's no public policy against the use of device in the cars. So the right to cure law. Outside of the UCC, individual and state jurisdictions have enacted a variety of laws to govern the consumer credit transactions and retail installment contracts. These laws supplement to any extent of the inconsistencies and supersede the UCC provisions governing the right upon default. In many states, a creditor may repossess a vehicle only after the default under a contract. With respect to the use of the payment assurance technology, this translates into a creditor may only use the payment assurance technology after default of the contract. Definitions of default varies among states, and creditors must be cognizant of the events of default that are permissible within their state. So for example, if a state does not allow repossession until default, and default does not occur until the payment has not been paid for 20 days, a conservative creditor would most likely not use the payment assurance technology until 20 days after the payment was missed. Many of these laws grant consumers the right to cure a default before the secured party may repossess the collateral, and notice and cure periods also delay the use of payment assurance technology. We recommend that creditors observe all right to cures prior to disabling a vehicle using the starter interrupt technology. Examples of states with some cure periods are Colorado, Iowa, Missouri, Maine, and Wisconsin, just to name a few. So some benefits of the starter and devices. there are both industry and consumer benefits in using payment assurance or startup technology. The use of the devices reduces the cost of repossession, towing, and storage, and offers the consumer an immediate opportunity to cure default without having to pay these costs. The device, when installed properly, will not result in the breach of the peace. And further, the devices allow the consumer who may not otherwise qualify for credit to obtain credit, and allows the consumer to obtain credit at a less expensive rate than they would have qualified with other creditors without an effective way to limit their credit risk. Creditors in states we've discussed and states with similar laws should also use the devices in such a way as to address each of the concerns expressed by the regulators. A creditor should provide the consumer with the right to cure a default prior to disablement by the device in the state required notice before repossession. And under some of the state right to cure statutes, pre-repossession notices must be issued, and the devices must not render the vehicle inoperable prior to the expiration of any applicable statute, cure, or grace period. The creditor can also address safety concerns more accurately by explaining how the devices work. As noted, the device, when installed correctly, cannot disable a vehicle when running. In addition, by providing emergency codes and protective measures to the consumer in event of the regular codes expire, the vehicle will not start, and the creditors may avoid safety concerns voiced by many regulators or consumer advocates. And that emergency code is based on whatever your device provider provides to you. Finally, the Payment Assurance Technology Association has adopted as standards to creditors to provide customers full written disclosures of the terms governing the device use and obtain the customer's consent for the use of the device, therefore significantly reducing or eliminating conscionable or privacy concerns. Even so, it's interesting to note that in Wisconsin, the Office of Consumer Affairs at the Department of Financial Institutions issued an informal opinion that the office takes the position that the use of payment assurance protection devices, which includes startup devices, is an unfair collection practices under the Consumer Act. So in light of this opinion, it's still unclear whether creditors may install and use startup devices in Wisconsin. So GPS under the existing law. To date, there's only a handful of states that limit the use of GPS tracking or similar devices in connection with the extension of credit, where states do not directly regulate GPS in connection with those transactions. Some consumer advocates have argued that the use of a GPS component is impermissible invasion of a consumer's privacy. A creditor using a device can significantly reduce or eliminate privacy concerns by obtaining the customer's signed written agreements to the GPS component and a knowledge waiver of any rights of privacy concerns to the location of the vehicle. Consumers are generally permitted to knowingly surrender those rights of privacy. Presumably, an express or conspicuous agreement and a waiver separately signed by the customer would lessen the likelihood of a court to find an invasion of privacy. In addition to the general concerns of privacy, some states have either expressly or implicitly limited the use of GPS in connection with the credit transactions. For example, in Connecticut, the GPS components are deemed a type of electronic self-help. So for the sake of time, I'm going to skip the details in Connecticut, but if you're interested in them, I can send them later. In addition to the limitations under Connecticut law, California, Michigan, Tennessee, and Texas criminalize the use of electronic tracking devices on a vehicle without the owner's consent. If the owner expressly consents to the use of the GPS and waives the right to privacy, GPS would be permitted in California and Tennessee. And effective August 1st, 2010, Michigan law makes it a misdemeanor punishable by imprisonment for up to 1 year or a fine of $1,000 or both to install or place a tracking device on a motor vehicle without the knowledge and consent of the owner of that vehicle. Note, too, that the Texas Penal Code provides the person that commits a Class A misdemeanor if a person knowingly installs electronic or mechanical tracking devices on a motor vehicle owned or leased by another person. However, a person who installs electronic tracking device is not subject to criminal penalties if the person obtained an effective consent of the owner and lessee of the motor vehicle before the electronic or mechanical tracking device was installed. So no other states expressly regulate the use of GPS in connection with credit transactions. However, it is perhaps arguable that monitoring the location of a vehicle is an action by a secured party to realize upon collateral. And many states, particularly states that have adopted the uniform UCC code, prohibit creditors from taking any action to realize on collateral until there has been a default or the creditor has given the consumer a right to cure such default. While the argument that the use of GPS determines the location of the vehicle is an action to realize upon collateral appears tenuous at best, as monitoring location does not seem to equate to actually taking the steps to recover or liquidate the collateral. So in an abundance of caution, creditors should assure that the GPS component may not be activated prior to default and the opportunity to cure any state that prohibits that action upon collateral until default and right to cure expires. Last is mitigating concerns. In order to mitigate concerns regarding the use of GPS by creditors, a creditor must obtain from the consumer a signed written agreement for the use of the GPS component, and the agreement must be included a knowledge waiver of the right to privacy concerns and the location of the vehicle. The agreement and waiver must be clear and conspicuous, and meaning not hidden in a paragraph on the back of a contract. Separate signatures or initials are a good idea to ensure that the consumer has knowledge and intends to agree. And the device must be, the consent with default and right to cure must be consistent with right to cure and default requirements if it's applicable in that state. So I'm going to stop there. I know that I've gone over 20 minutes, so I'm probably done. And if you have any questions, I can find them. I can talk to them later. But thank you.
Thank you so much, Corinne, for condensing a 2-hour presentation into a fraction of that time. Excellent job. Just one quick follow-up, just to clarify a point that you made during your presentation. A couple of the dealers who have joined us today were asking that you can charge the customer for the installation of a GPS device, but it must be clearly stated as part of a finance charge. Is that correct?
It's debatable whether that is acceptable, mostly because the state regulate, or the contracts that regulate the use of the devices in the contracts that are given under the risk don't address that as a finance charge. And so I would definitely circle back with Nikki at Hudson Cook about that point, because she's got a much broader range on it and can address it better.
Very good, very good. Wonderful presentation, Corinne. Corinne Kirkendall. She's the Vice President of Compliance and Public Relations at Pastime. Thank you so much, Corinne.
Thank you.
So moving on to our final presenter of our webinar session, one of the best in the business. He's Brent Carmichael. He's the Executive Conference Moderator at NCM Associates, leads 20 groups and does a wide array of consulting throughout the country. He's been on the road quite a bit recently, and we appreciate taking some time to be a part of today's inaugural session. Brent, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you, Nick. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and participate this afternoon. So thank you and everybody at the Buy Here, Pay Here report, all your staff. Like I said, it's an honor to be a part of this. Also, a special thank you goes out to you for making me follow Corinne and Tara. Obviously, you put the brains of the panelists first and left the dummies for the end of it. That's kind of a tough act to follow those two young ladies. So
I think the courtesy is to have ladies go first. So.
And also the ones that are smarter and better looking as well. So yes, that's a trifecta for us there today. Again, it's a pleasure being here. I thank all of you for joining. I know you've got very busy schedules this afternoon, so I appreciate you taking time. out of your busy days to learn a little bit more, try to improve your businesses. I'm going to talk about today how to find and maintain buy here, pay here customers. First thing I want to do is introduce NCM just a little bit for those of you who may not be familiar with who we are and what we do. We've been doing automotive 20 groups since 1947. We are in our 67th year of doing automotive 20 groups. 15 of those, the past 15, we've been doing buy here, pay here specific 20 groups as well. So as you can see, we pretty much wrote the book on the 20 group side of this. Just about all 20 group providers have some sort of lineage back to us with NCM. We only provide 20 groups, education, consulting, the benchmarking tools, and data management system that I have listed here is not a data management system similar to what Tara was talking about earlier. We do not provide software systems for dealers that would maintain inventory, sell cars, collect accounts, or anything along those lines. The data management solutions that we have are tracking and trending tools that are plug-ins to your current DMS system to help data mine some more information out of those for you. So we don't provide we're not any kind of a competitor with Finance Express or anybody else out there, but this is all we do. We're not a capital provider for buy here, pay here, or for the automobile industry. Our simple focus is to help dealers get better and become better dealers in what they are. And we are a 100% employee-owned company headquartered in Overland Park, Kansas, or Kansas City. Why is this important? You would say is because 100% employee-owned, I am an owner. So it helps us provide the best service possible for our clients since we do own the place, so to speak. Okay, we want to talk today about how to find and maintain buy here, pay here customers. This is one of the top 3 topics in all of the 20 groups I've done for about the past year, and it's specifically about this during this calendar year. One of the things that most dealers, even in our 20 groups and the ones I work with from a consulting basis, are the most concerned with. Obviously, the other 2 would be compliance, which Corinne did a great job of updating us and letting us know kind of what's out there in the regulatory environment. The other one being inventory acquisition, and it's actually taken a backseat to this topic. So today I'm going to help you try to find some more buy here, pay here customers, specifically buy here, pay here customers, and hopefully help how to maintain some of the current customers that you have, keep them from either going to subprime, which we know has been a pretty good competitor to us in the last year and a half, and looks like it's going to be for the foreseeable future. So let's start out with finding them. Where am I going to find our buy here, pay here customer? The number one place that you will find your buy here, pay here customer is on your website or through the web. A survey done by Auto Trader and NABD, and they've actually done this the last 2 years in a row, showed that 80 to 85% of buy here, pay here customers, not people in general, but specifically buy here, pay here customers, do some to significant research online before they ever visit a dealership. That is huge. I've been a buy here, pay here dealer in the past for about 12 years, and at one time I don't think our customers could have spelt intranet, much less known what one was. But now 80 to 85% are online doing some sort of research, some to significant research before they ever leave their house and come out and visit a dealership. Also, this survey showed that they will only visit at most 2 dealerships when they do. So you've got to have a great opportunity once you get them into your dealership of keeping them there, because if you don't sell them, the next person definitely will, and we know that's true in today's competitive market. Another number that you need to be aware of is 65% of ages 25 to 44. Now, this is all adults, basically, not just buy here, pay here customers, get their information via the web. Okay, 25 to 54, I put that up there because that is basically our average age range for the buy here, pay here customer, at least with the dealers that I have the privilege of working with. Average age of the customer that's buying is somewhere between 25 and 44. Obviously, there's some older and some less, but the core customer falls somewhere in that age bracket, and 65% of that age bracket is getting their information online, not on TV, not from the radio, definitely not from newspaper or print. They're getting it online somewhere. And of that 65%, over 70% of those get their information from their smartphone, not from an iPad, not from any kind of a tablet or even a laptop or a desktop. 70% of that age group is getting its information from their smartphone. Now, why is that important? Well, because our website needs to be mobile moving forward. If you go to look on, if you want to know if yours is or not, just simply pick up your iPhone or your Samsung, go to your website. Is it just the regular website I would see on my laptop, or is it a condensed version that actually fits on that little itty-bitty screen? If it's not, something to put on your to-do list would be to get with your IT guy or your website guy and say, hey, I need a mobile website. 70% of the people from 25 to 44 are probably going to be trying to access my website from their smartphone, and can they see it, or is it really, really small, one of the two? So something to be aware of. The last thing when it comes to websites that is very important is leads are all that matters. I'm referring more to an SEO or SEM. I'm sure a lot of you out there have somebody who does this for you, provides you with the numbers. Maybe you're using a Google Analytics to take a look at it, and your SEO guy is saying, well, hey, look at all these unique visits you got, and look at all these page views you got, and they're spending 5 minutes on your website. For buy here, pay here, that's irrelevant. Leads are what we need our website to generate, whether it be a contact us form or our application, either one of those, something where we are getting at least a name, a phone number, and an email address. Number of page views doesn't really matter. I've seen dealers' websites that are 8 pages per, they're viewing 8 pages per time that customer's on their website, and they're getting less than 1% in leads. That means their customers are all over their website. They're looking at everything, but they're not taking the time to at least ask to be contacted, one of the two. So if you go back and get with your whoever's managing your SEO or SEM for you, this is a number that I want to know. What is my percent of leads? And I would say probably of your unique visits, not necessarily total visits, but just of your unique visits. So something to be keyed in on moving forward is, hey, there's a lot of traffic on my website, but how many leads am I actually getting? You could line up 12 different SEO and SEM guys right now, and they would all give you 12 different answers probably as to what your website really needs and really what should be doing for you. But one thing to keep in mind is a buy here, pay here website is not an automobile website. Automobile websites are there to pick inventory and narrow down your choices as far as a car is concerned. Buy here, pay here website is about telling who we are and what it is we do. That's not necessarily the car that our customer needs. It's the financing. It's the help getting over that credit crunch they've had in the past. So something to keep in mind. Website, it's just not good enough to have a website anymore. It's got to be an effective one. Do you want to go after the 80 to 85% of our customer base, or do you want to be old-fashioned and still spend a lot of money on TV and a lot of money on radio going after that 15 to 20% that's not getting their information online? The second thing is a referral plan. Now, I know what some of you are going to say. Well, Brent, I can't pay referral fees. Dealers are not allowed to pay referral fees in my state. That is true in quite a few states. Most of the states where a salesperson, a car salesperson, has to have some sort of a license to be a salesperson to sell cars, those are typically the states where it is frowned upon, let's say, or even illegal in most, for a dealer to pay bird dog fees or referral fees. There's a fairly simple way around that, and it's not really a way around that. If Corinne's still listening, I don't want to get in trouble for violating any kind of laws. If you have a related finance company or related finance company, you can simply write those referral fees for you for the dealership side. But your referral, if you do have a referral plan in place, let me put it that way, and I hope everyone out there does, referrals should constitute at least 25% of your monthly sales. So if you're selling 100 cars a month, I would expect 25 of those to come from referrals. Referrals meaning current customer referrals. I think you should pay vendor referrals, all the vendors that you do business with, whether it might be a Cintas or someone along those lines that knows somebody that would refer to your dealership. Those should be paid. I've seen those paid. Obviously, other car dealerships, other used car dealerships, to either F&I managers or used car manager, even salespeople to a certain extent, to get their turndowns. I've seen some dealers actually incentivize their current employees as far as a referral basis. Again, if you know somebody who needs a car, send them our way and they'll pay those. But it really should, an effective referral program should be a minimum of 25% of your monthly sales on an ongoing basis. And again, what better way to find good customers? If I have a good customer, they should probably know some people similar to them from an economic standpoint and hopefully would want to pay bills the same way that they do. It does need to be easy to understand. I see a lot of referral plans where there's some tier, and if it's this, you get this, and if there's 5, you get this, and 10, you get this. It's got to be easy not only for the customer to understand, but also for your current staff to understand. If they don't understand how it works or what the true benefit of the referral plan is, they obviously cannot explain it or even sell it, so to speak, to the customer base. So it's got to be very simple, short, sweet, to the point, X number of dollars, free car washes for life, whatever it is, but it needs to be something very simple and very easy to understand for everybody concerned. The last thing, it does have to have value to the customer. A $25 referral fee probably won't incentivize too many of your good-paying customers to go out and sing your praises at the top of their lungs. In fact, that's about 4 gallons of gas or 5 gallons of gas, maybe where I am here in Kentucky. We're almost $4 a gallon here, so $25 doesn't even give us a quarter tank of gas anymore. But averages out there, and I'm not condoning this amount, I'm just relaying what the averages are for the dealers that I work with, is around $200. That will cover most weekly payments, in fact, most all weekly payments. It covers most biweekly payments for a customer. So think of it that way. It's got to be some value to the customer for them to want to go out and sell on your behalf, that they would go out and tell their friends and family, hey, please go buy a car at ABC Motor. So it's got to have value to them, whether it's money. If you don't want to go the money route, it's got to be something else that truly holds some sort of value to them. Movie gift cards, Walmart gift cards, something similar to that would be what I'm referring to there. And lastly, I think your environment is a key way to find new customers that might be in the market out there. And the first way is being involved in the community, especially now as the regulatory environment has stepped up its pace, so to speak. What better time to be more involved in your community, to be more a part of your Chamber of Commerce, to do blood drives, to maybe sponsor a T-ball team or something along those lines. Anything that kind of gets your name out there that shows that you're community-oriented will help attract customers to you as well. Be a member of as many associations as you can afford or care to be a part of, NABD, your state dealer associations, any business associations, anywhere that Better Business Bureau, which I'm sure most of you are obviously a member of. If you're an A+ member, that needs to be on the front page of #1 of our website. So be very involved in your community, be a pillar of the community moving forward. It helps you attract customers. And again, we kind of talked about referrals from other businesses, from vendors. Again, what better way to be a member of a Chamber of Commerce, and there happens to be a dry cleaning business as a member of that chamber, has an employee that works there. Because you're a member of the chamber, now you've just added possibly one more customer to your customer base. Secondly is lot appeal. This is one I see probably overlooked more than anything else. There still are a few customers, even though we know that 80 to 85% do significant to some research before they ever leave the house. And we talked about they'll go to no more than 2 dealerships. How your lot looks is a way that attracts new customers as well. You know, we've all seen them in our market areas. We see the guy that has weeds growing up and dust 1 inch thick on the cars. Our customer will drive by that because there is other choices out there. So our lot should always look good. I'm not saying that you need to spend $1 million and have the nicest lot, but it can be picked up, the car's turned the right way, no flat tires, the basic lot appeal, which at one time was probably paramount for most dealers, but something I have seen really kind of slip over the last couple of years is how well they take care, how well those lots look. I do sales training in Buy Here, Pay Here for salespeople and for sales managers. And part of the sales managers training, when we talk about the lot appeal, is those cars are mannequins. I mean, if you go to a department store and the mannequins have chipped off fingers and may not be completely dressed right, or they're old and dingy, you're more willing to probably walk away from that and go to a Macy's or a Dillard's where they're always looking good and always dressed right, and even pay a little bit more money just because of the look. So consider your cars and your lot, your mannequin in your store, and make sure that those are looking good and standing tall for the customers to drive by. And lastly, when it comes to environment, as far as finding customers, when they come in the door, there needs to be some sort of a positive vibe going on in your store. I mean, after you come off the webinar today, just kind of walk back into your dealership and get a gauge. I know it's a Tuesday afternoon, so there's probably not a lot going on. Hopefully there is, but maybe there's not. You know, what is the vibe? Is it a positive vibe? Is there maybe some music in the background? Are we ballooned up front? Do we have popcorn machines? Just something to make, once they step inside that dealership, that it looks like an inviting, fun atmosphere that they're going to want to do business with you. Okay, secondly, let's talk about maintaining them. Now we've talked about 3 ways to find them. And again, you probably noticed that not one of those had to do with advertising. Any kind of a radio or TV ad. Again, I think the website is where we need to be. That's where our customer is. So if we're going to spend money, that's probably where we need to spend most of it. I'm not saying don't spend any money on TV or radio, but when I know 65% of my age demographic is getting their information online, I don't know that I need to spend 65% of my advertising and marketing budget on TV or radio when I'm only really talking to maybe 35% of that market. Let's talk about maintaining them. How am I going to keep them? Almost in the reverse order. The first way I think that we're going to keep our customers is by providing a friendly environment, one with a little bit of an excitement. I was in a dealership just not too far north here up in Cincinnati about a month ago, and it was a Wednesday, and I got there about 10 o'clock in the morning thinking, okay, it's going to be nice and quiet. It was pretty much nonstop action from 10 o'clock in the morning until I left at 7 o'clock tonight. Not a lot of customers coming in and making payments, a few to buy cars, but the customer base was just like to hang out. They like to come and talk to the gentleman that collected or the nice young lady that does title work. They just happened to be in the neighborhood, and this was a Wednesday afternoon. I couldn't imagine what it would have been like on a Friday, but on a Wednesday afternoon, this place was hopping, and I said, is this a special day? And no, this is just a typical day. Our customers just like to come and hang out. Brightly colored painted windows, popcorn machine, pop machine. Again, not saying you have to spend money to do this, but our customers are looking for a friendly, fun environment that they want to do business with. But they're also looking for one that's very respectful. This is one I see far too often when I'm doing consulting. I hear as soon as a customer walks off some sort of derogatory talk about, well, they always lie, and they never want to pay on time, and their grandma died 3 times last year, those kind of things. That kind of talk, even though we didn't say it directly to the customer, will come across to the customer at some point. They'll start to feel like they are just a customer and not maybe a part of the family or a friend. So just be very careful in how we deal with our customers on a day-to-day basis. This one and the next one, being courteous with our customers, are 2 of the reasons that I see most often for customers not wanting to be repeat customers. And this could be from a sales and a collection standpoint. Typically, and we're going to talk about repeat business here in just a minute, repeat business, if it's not very high, the first place as a consultant, typically I look, and I'm not blaming the collection staff, but that's usually the first place I look. The sales staff was the nice ones at first. They got them the car they wanted for the down payment and the payment that they wanted, but really the only one they've dealt with after that day has been the collection staff. So when we're talking about our repeat business, which is the second way to maintain our customers, we're similar to our referral in that we would hope for an established buy here, pay here business that 25% of your monthly sales should be repeat. So again, if we're talking about 100 sales a month, then we would want at least 25 of those to be repeat. And if not, then it's time to take a look at a couple of other aspects. Maybe our sales process initially, maybe they were promised things that weren't delivered or weren't clear on some of the issues that we should have been on at the time that they left. Or maybe it is from a collection standpoint where we weren't very respectful or courteous to them that kept them from buying from us again. Low balance. I think everybody out there probably has an amount that is when they start actually calling customers to see if they're ready to trade or wanting to trade. We've seen this number go up pretty significantly just since I've been on this side of the business, since I haven't been a dealer for about 7 years now. Back in my day, it was around $500 because cars were a lot cheaper. Now we're seeing that in the $3,500 to $4,000 range, 6, 7, almost 8 months out from payoff, because our customers are kind of twofold. They are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel now at 7 or 8 months, going, another $3,000 and I'll have this thing paid off. And they're understanding the benefits to not having debt, which in the past they really didn't. It was they couldn't wait to buy another car just because they wanted another car. Now with the kind of the unsettling of the economy, it's, hey, if I can get this paid off and not have to worry about it, then I'll be okay. Secondly, our cars are just better than they used to be. The cars are lasting a lot longer than they used to, so their cars are still in good running order at the end of the loan, in the last 5 or 6 months of the loan, so they're not really needing to trade at that point. And we do know our customer is a needs-based buyer, not necessarily a wants-based buyer. And lastly, when it comes to the repeat, we've got to have an offer that's competitive. We can't expect the customer to buy the exact same car they bought. They can only buy so many 2004 Ford Tauruses with 130,000 miles on them. We've sold them the dream on the front end that said if you pay for this one, the next one we'll get you is going to be nicer. We have to be willing to do that for that customer. We have to be willing to take a little bit more risk. And obviously with what's going on in subprime right now, I'm not saying try to match those models because we can't. They're going 60 months, basically the same interest rate, but a lot higher ACV car. But we've got to be willing to make some sacrifices for those good paying customers to keep them on our books and make sure that we keep them for 2 or 3 cars. Lastly, how we're going to find customers is our own farm. I call it our own farm. It's our current customer base, but not our open balance customer base. First place is going to be our paid outs. Do you currently have some sort of a follow-up process? Obviously, you probably do with your repeat, $3,500 we call, we ask them. But do you have anything with your paid outs? When a customer pays out their car, what is our process for our follow-up? Are we sending them a thank you card? Are we soliciting our paid out customer base on a fairly regular basis? Again, we know they're going to be back in the market at some time. We need to make sure that we stay in frame of mind with them. So we've got to make sure that we've got that follow-up process there in place as well. I teach it as basically the same as if somebody bought a car or didn't buy a car. We're going to follow up with them on a regular basis just to let them know that we're still here and kind of going back to finding new customers, selling that referral plan if I have it. Now, before you completely bail on this webinar, when you see this one right here and you think I'm completely crazy, I think this is a very viable source for customers. Now, is it really, it's not finding them and it's maintaining them, I guess, both to a certain extent. Yes, I would solicit charged off customers, especially if I don't pursue deficiency. Most of you would say, well, I'm never going to solicit one of my charged off customers until they pay me everything that they owe me. But vice versa, you'll sell somebody a vehicle today who's had a repossession with another dealer, maybe not recent history, but one in the past. So why not take a look at our charged off customer base? And if you are pursuing deficiency, then we look past the 7-year or 5-year, whatever your statute of limitations is, and take a look at those customers, because we know that they've probably changed jobs, changed residences. Maybe they're more stable now than they've ever been. So it doesn't hurt to reach out to them, and we do have some kind of history, albeit not the best history, but at least we do have a history with that customer, so they're kind of familiar with who we are and what we do. That's about it, guys. Find and maintain. I'm not a cliche kind of guy, not outside the box. Some of this stuff is basic 101. Website is mucho important, and if we're going to keep those customers and maintain them, we have to understand they want the same things we do. They want to be treated with courtesy and respect, and that's it. If we do that, I think you're on your way.
Great anecdotal stories, Brent, and some great strategy recommendations. Excellent job. Thank you so much. Just to follow up, being that we're a little bit past the halfway points of the year, Brent, what maybe should be some steps that some operators can consider to either make the second half of the year strong, or it seems like tax season starts earlier and earlier with the strategies that are available nowadays. Just what do you recommend that the guys do after this webinar concludes, and to look into the second half of the year?
Well, and I was going to say, typically for us, this is more of the slower time, is August, September, October, and even into November, and then those that are a little more aggressive with tax season and start doing their tax anticipation deferred downs in November and December, so they kind of pick it up there. Really, this is the time of year, Nick, in my opinion, that we focus on, and again, I'm not a cliche kind of guy, but the blocking and tackling, the little things. You know, tax season's easy to sell cars. There's customers coming out of the woodwork at that point. Money's available. The dog days of summer, so to speak, are the time when we really need to focus on our core business, who we are, what we do, take care of those customers that have taken care of us. So, again, I guess my main thing would be just focus on who you are and what you do at this time of year, and go back to what got you where you are in the first place, knowing that toward the end of the year, if that's where we're going to do our tax advance, and knowing that tax season is coming around again, you know, this time of the year it's time to maintain. Let's not lose customer base. Let's make sure that we're selling enough cars to cover those that are unfortunately may charge off or pay off, either one. But let's focus on that and not really go too overboard. I don't think it's the time of year to really try anything drastic, because you won't know in buy here, pay here, obviously, for some cases a year and a half, or 2 years, whether those are good decisions. So I think it's better to be a little more conservative and just focus on the basics for the rest of the year, and just make sure that we maintain what we have.
Very good. He's Brent Carmichael, the Executive Conference Moderator at NCM Associates, specializing in Buy Here, Pay Here. Brent, thank you so much for using part of the pit stop on your travels here to be a part of our first webinar. Thank you so much.
Oh, always a pleasure, Nick. I appreciate the opportunity to participate.
And thank you again for all of our presenters, Tara Bauman from FBX DMS, as well as Corinne Kirkendall from Pastime. for joining us on the first installment of the Buy Here, Pay Here Reports webinar series. Just a reminder that we have recorded today's session, so keep watch of your inbox in the coming days, where there'll be a link to the recording as well as the presentations from each of our participants that be able to review some of the great information that was shared and share with other managers at your store and create a strategy that will help your operation in a myriad of ways. As we close here, just like to share a little bit of information regarding the 2014 Used Car Week conferences, the CPO Dealer Forum, the Subprime Forum, RE3, and our flagship event, the National Remarketing Conference. These 4 conferences, through individual presentations and panel discussions and small group workshops, and even one-on-one networking opportunities, set the stage for the future in all facets of the remarketing industry, providing actionable ideas and other insight for the remainder of this year and beyond. These are sessions set up for dealers, remarketers, lenders, repossession agents, and more. So if you'd like to join us, we're going to be at the Red Rock Casino Resort and Spa in Las Vegas, running from November the 10th through the 14th. And finally, if you're not already a subscriber to our family of publications, we urge you to do so. Not only the Buy Here, Pay Here report that was launched earlier this year, and we plan to begin printing beginning here in September, our sister publications, Auto Remarketing, that covers all elements of the wholesale industry, certified pre-owned, and more, as well as Subprime Auto Finance News, the coverage of special finance, floor planning, and more. So each of the websites, you can sign up for our free emails and stay up to date on the industry news you need. So again, for our presenters, Tara Bauman from FEX DMS, the Director of Sales and Training, Corinne Kirkendall, the Vice President of Compliance and Public Relations at Pastime, and Brent Carmichael, the Executive Conference Moderator at NCM Associates. I'm Nick Zulovich, the editor of Buy Here, Pay Here Report. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to the next session of the Buy Here, Pay Here Report webinar series.